You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hi, I'm Joe Heath.
I'm Toni Heath.
And this is the Watch-A-Thon of Rassilon.
Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go! Today, we're going to be talking about the 8th episode of the first series of Doctor Who, Father's Day, which aired May 14th, 2005.
True facts!
13 days after my birthday.
Yeah. Father's Day is 13 days after your birthday?
Yeah.
Today we have joining us two special guests, one returning, one brand spanking new, but very old to me, personally. Who should we introduce first? I'll let you choose.
Christine.
Okay, welcome back to the podcast. Christine, middle name Cherry.
Hello, I'm back. It's wonderful to be back here in this wonderful world of Rassilon.
While you are back and returning, this is your first New Who episode.
This is my first New Who episode.
So it is possible that people don't know who you are.
That's true.
What's your deal, Christine?
Tell us your deal, Christine.
It's weird and confusing, and I don't care for it. My name is Christine Cherry. I am a writer, sometimes performer. I write short fiction and some web series. I was in a web series called Sam and Pat Are Depressed with my friend and co-writer Brie Castellini. I also wrote and directed a web series called Relativity about time travel, a web series of 10 episodes which you can watch those 10 episodes in 3 different orders. That's really fun. I also co-wrote Road Trippy with Joseph Heath and Ray Friesen.
Those sound like handsome men.
They really do. It's wild how far off it is. But they sound handsome. I love you guys.
Love you too. What's your deal with Doctor Who?
I know way too much about Doctor Who. I've seen pretty much every visual Doctor Who that is available. I've listened to a fair amount of audio Doctor Who. I say visual Doctor Who, like televisual Doctor Who. I've not read that many Doctor Who comics, but, I've seen all the Doctors. I am totally caught up with the series. I started watching Doctor Who as a teenager when it came out with this season in 2005, and been obsessed with it ever since.
Cool.
Should we introduce our new guest now?
Nah, I'm just gonna let him stew. So, okay, joining us today is someone who is relevant to this very episode in 2 different ways.
Okay.
One is because this is Father's Day, and one is because it involves Reapers, and this man is both the Grim Reaper in multiple projects I have filmed, and my father!
And your dad! It's your dad!
Oh, are you going to bring that up? I thought I was here as Christine's friend.
That too. It's Brad Heath, my dad. You've played my fictional father, and you are also my real father.
And you've played fictional death, and you are also real death.
Yes.
That's your side hustle. So tell us about yourself, Dad.
I am your father and Tony's father-in-law and Christine's friend. And let's see. Oh, I'm a graphic designer. Work for a media company in Chattanooga. Like to draw. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I just get sucked into all your projects. That's all.
Yeah, you've starred in pretty much everything I've done. Pretty much. Or you've worked on it in some way or another. Like, you're not in Skip, but you made the time device in Skip.
Yeah, and the title card.
And the top, yeah, you do title cards and posters for pretty much everything.
I add the laurels to all your projects.
You're my graphic designer.
Yes.
And you've also drawn comic books for me. So that's cool, too. Get them on minipineapple.com/store. Is it too early to do plugs?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We have a whole spot in the podcast dedicated to that thing, and it's not time for it yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll hold off. But we've known each other for what? 34 years?
Yeah, something like that.
You're the first guest on this podcast that I've known for the longest time.
What?
Whoa. For the longest time?
I don't know. Yeah.
The first guest on this podcast that I've known for the longest time.
You're the guest. Yeah. You're the guest I've known for the longest time.
But the first one.
I've just got Billy Joel in my head now. I'm sorry.
I know. Christine loves Billy Joel. That's a thing everyone should know about Christine.
That's why we're such good friends.
I famously adore Billy Joel. That's the thing. New listeners who just come on for New Who might not know that I love Billy Joel, and that's a true fact.
And they should make note of it right now.
Exactly.
Update her Wikipedia page.
Send her covers and remixes, or just, original songs from Billy Joel, just to cheer her up.
Is Billy Joel recording new songs for me?
Yeah. Just for you.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Billy, if you're listening, and I know that you are, I know that you love Doctor Who.
We should get your dad's Doctor Who
history.
background.
Yeah.
Ah, well, way before you guys were born, I saw Tom Baker on PBS. So I caught a few episodes of that. So he should be my doctor, but he's not, because I just madly in love with David Tennant.
It happens.
That's the doctor that's for me. Not just because of Doctor Who, but loved him on Jessica Jones, Good Omens. Just brings an energy that's a lot of actors don't have. So he's my doctor. That's so far my favorite doctor. Of course, I haven't seen Capaldi or Whittaker, so still working my way towards that. I'm ashamed to have it finished.
Well, you can listen along with the podcast and give you motivation.
Yeah, there you go. So that's my background with Doctor Who.
So you said you've seen some Baker. Have you seen anything classic Who other than Baker?
Actually, no. I have a son that's watched them all, but...
and a daughter-in-law?
Yes.
Yeah, nice. Thanks.
And a friend?
A close personal friend. Don't forget that.
Close personal friend.
That's where I get my cred from.
Did we explain that you played Death, or did we just...
No, you explained it.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we fully explained what that meant.
Well, I think he briefly explained it. Oftentimes, Death, the Grim Reaper, is a character that appears in Joe's work. And whenever this character appears, which again is often, it is always played by his dad, Brad. If you think this is in some way weirder and perhaps there's some psychosexual component to that, well, I've got a video for you.
Everyone should check that out. No sloppy
makeouts. Did you dare me to write it?
Yes, I think so. You wrote an essay about sexuality and gender in my films. I made a video of it, and it was narrated by Ben Patton, other guest on this podcast, frequent guest. After that, both you and Ben came out as trans, but not me. Interesting.
It's just a thing that happens sometimes.
You still remain gloriously cishet. Well.
I'm dating. I'm married. To a non-binary individual, so that's something. All right, should we talk about Doctor Who?
I think you should give the summary of the episode.
Okay. Another thing that I do in New Who, I was, for Classic Who, giving individual episodes titles, but that doesn't exist anymore. But I'm giving multi-episode things a serial title, but also... Steve Conway said I should just do alternate titles, so I'm doing alternate titles.
Okay.
So my alternate title for Father's Day is just Father Time.
That's one of the worst pitches you've ever given me.
I like it.
You
no!
like it?
Absolutely not.
Because it is Father Time.
You could just Brad is here. That would be the good one.
It's... Not for the podcast, though. I'm giving alternate titles for the episode we're talking about. We could call it Daddy Reaper. All right, I'm going to give the summary now, and then we'll talk about Doctor Who. I did not have much time to write this one, but then again, I never write them very well anyway. So, in Father Time, Rose gets the doctor to take her back to see her dad, Pete, on the day he died in a hit and run. Instead, she saves his life, unknowingly unleashing time dragons. Everyone goes to a wedding and are attacked. They camp out in the church while the doctor tries to figure out how to save everyone. Pete learns he is Rose's dad and figures out he was supposed to die. After the Doctor and the TARDIS are eaten by a time dragon, Pete sacrifices himself to save everyone. That's probably the shortest summary I've ever done.
That pretty much got it.
It's not a particularly plotty episode.
Fun fact, it almost was. One of the original drafts had a lot more time shenanigans going on. Neanderthals showed up at one point, and like time was just getting weird. People in the wedding were like aging at different places. I think the dad tried to sacrifice his daughter to the time dragons to get him to go away, and it backfired and he got eaten by the dragons. They're not dragons, they're called reapers, but
They're dragons.
They're dragons.
Are they dragons?
They kind of look like dragons. They got like big holes in their chest that look metaphorical or something.
Is anything that has wings and flies a dragon? Like, at what point? What are the boundaries of dragon?
Well, have you seen a dragon fly?
I don't have a good joke. Any joke that I could have done would have required me to have a more encyclopedic knowledge of insects than I do. I can't just conjure an insect.
I think you can.
I don't know how many bug facts you know, but there's more beetles.
There are more beetles.
We can't get off on this tangent.
That's another inside joke. Okay, so I've got a few like trivia notes. First off, the original title for this was called Wound in Time or Wounded Time.
I like those. I like those better than anything you pitched.
Do you like it better than Father's Day?
No, I don't.
Okay. This episode was nominated for a Hugo, along with Dalek and the next two-parter. It lost to the next two-parter.
That makes sense. That seems fair.
The Reapers were originally supposed to look more like the Grim Reaper, just dudes in hoods with scythes, and they thought that was too similar to the repeated meme from End of the World.
They do have scythes-looking things.
Yeah, it's occurring to me just now that those appendages are sides.
Yeah, the little tails is it their tails or their wings that have the sides on them?
They're kind of not. They're like arms. I feel like they have wings and then arms, but the arms aren't arms. The arms are sides.
Dad, as the Grim Reaper expert, how do you feel about these guys?
Oh, love them. Yeah, they're not horning in on my territory at all. They never showed up again in the TV series until like an episode of The Flash as time wraiths.
I've not seen The Flash, so I don't know.
Well, of course you haven't. He's too fast.
Yeah, but the Flash has time wraiths, and I'm thinking they ripped off Doctor Who, and there should be some legal matters settled over it, but that's beside the point.
I don't know. Does the DC universe have time wraiths? That I don't know.
They do now.
Did Arrowverse invent time wraiths, or did they like steal them from the comics?
They stole them from Doctor Who.
Fair enough.
They even look like spectral Reapers.
While we're talking about the Reapers, right off the bat, I would like to get something, not off my chest, but I think one of the weirdest criticisms, not necessarily of this episode, but of every episode since this episode, there's this meme that happens all the time, repeatedly. Whenever anyone in an episode of Doctor Who comes in physical contact with their past self, someone will complain, "Where are these Reapers?" When it's very clearly stated in the episode that this is a consequence of the very specific circumstances of having, like, a time traveler having gone to the same event in the past 3 times and then stopping the death of their own father. That is the amount of things that you have to do to the time stream to get these things to show up. It's not just, like, touching yourself. Touching yourself is fine.
Unless you're the Brig.
Yeah, touching yourself is not great. It causes
wasn't that like an anti-Brig, though?
I don't...
Is that
no, it was 2 different
It wasn't like
Briggs.
there was like an antimatter Brig and a... Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't remember.
Okay, so here's the thing. The Rose touching herself didn't cause the things. That just caused a paradox that, like, allowed them to enter the church. They fed on it. They feed on paradoxes. And, like, they showed up because of this, like, supercharged paradox.
I have to admit now that I used to not particularly care for this episode.
For this reason?
For this reason. Because I was like, these guys have never existed, and they never come back up again, so it's weird. And that's honestly, a dumb reason not to like this episode, which is actually pretty good.
I like one thing about this episode a lot and one thing I don't like at all. The first thing I really, really like is they didn't go back to her time and everything be screwed up and then they got to jump back, which happens to a lot of time situations where something happens like this where, oh no, like Back to the Future 2, we got to go back and fix everything. So it all took place in that one time spot, which I love that. It's less wacky, out of sync. They didn't go back and, Rose had grown 2 horns or something like that. The thing I hate about this is her father was an a-hole. And then you said, you got to do this with me, Dad. And I'm like, well, what are you trying to tell me?
Her dad's not an a-hole. He's
like a little bit of an a-hole.
He's just a disappointing human.
He was an a-hole until he sacrificed himself. So, there's not going to be a sacrifice at the end of this podcast, is there?
We'll see. We did say in the last episode at the very end that if people didn't tune in, we'd have to shoot you.
They shoot Brads, don't they?
So we had to say, we were like, tune in next time to see if we kill my dad. And I said, please don't make me kill my dad. So, but no,
we don't know yet, though.
I don't think he's necessarily an asshole. He's just
a person. I feel like that's a big part of this episode is going back into the past and meeting somebody who you've never met, A, and B, have a kind of a mythology around almost.
Because her mom's because she doesn't want to say shitty things about her dead dad, so.
And you only share the nice things.
Yeah.
After a person passes away. And so you meet them and they're,
a normal, flawed human being.
Yeah, complicated and human. And I feel like a lot of that is that's just a thing that happens with parents when you grow up, where you kind of go from having, a mythological understanding of them to having a human understanding of them.
Yeah.
And I feel like this episode is kind of about that in a way that involves time travel.
It's really about it that way. That's actually one of the things that I really like about this episode. I really love this episode. Partially because it is that kind of storytelling. I like the way that, all of the fun time shenanigans, as Brad was talking about, is kind of subordinated to the sort of thematic story that they're telling about, reckoning, with our parents and, as people.
But, it's redemption, though. The whole plot line is about his redemption. Because he even says, that's not me. That's not who I am. You're way off base. So this was a redemption story.
And he gets a second chance to be a good dad.
And then another chance in another timeline, but we'll get there. That's the future.
I have a couple more just minor trivia things that nobody cares about but me. They mention a pub called The Lamb and the Flag, which is a reference to Bottom, which is a sitcom with the dudes from The Young Ones. It's Rick Mile and Adrian Edmondson. And they just beat the shit out of each other for the entire run of the series. And
okay.
It's a funny show. But anyway, that pub is from that show, from Bottom. Fun fact. And the other bit of trivia is when time's going all wibbly wobbly and Rose tries to use her phone or anybody tries to use their phone, they hear the very first phone call and it's someone saying, Watson, I need you. But apparently that's incorrect. It should be Watson, I want you, not need you.
Whoa.
And then in the script it was correct. And then they recorded it, and I think they got someone else to come in and re-record it because they thought the guy sounded like he was trying to put on a Scottish accent too hard. And then when the guy re-recorded it, he fucked it up.
Oh.
Joe, when you started those facts and you prefaced them with, no one cares about these but me, I was gonna, protest and be like, no, I don't know, I care about, dumb Doctor Who facts. But no, you're right.
That was completely mediocre trivia.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's good to be back.
Another little piece of trivia. Slightly before the phone call, it's Rose and her dad in the car, and they're listening to the radio, and we are being rickrolled.
Yeah!
But this was a few years before rickrolling happened, so...
It's just a choice to let you know that you're in the 80s.
Yeah, we weren't being rickrolled at the time. But now we are, because of time travel.
And to be fair, Doctor Who, it's wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey. Doctor Who is rickrolling us. Absolutely.
Yeah. For sure.
Just because, like, they didn't know it or didn't invent it yet, that doesn't matter.
Speaking of Rickrolling in the 80s, hey, Dad.
Yeah.
Tell us about the 80s.
Tell us about the 80s. How does this compare to your... I mean, I know this is the UK and not the US, but you were around in the 80s. I was there for less than a year. You were there for less than a year.
I was there for...
Christine?
I was there for, like, a little over a year. I remember having shit in my pants a lot.
We all did.
It was the 80s.
Anyway, Dad, tell me, how does this compare with the 80s you remember?
Not at all.
Didn't have the big hair?
Well, we had the big hair, yeah. Everybody had the big hair. I mean, honestly, it could have been a different time because it's just, you know, what was happening over there versus what was happening over here. Because, you know, I live in the South. I mean, I didn't see any parachute pants. So, no Union Jacks, no sweatbands, aviator sunglasses.
Did they have those big cell phones?
Nobody had those down here. I never saw one of those in real life. That was something people in New York had. They were very expensive. So we had pagers toward the end of the 80s, early 90s. We didn't have those big cell phones.
I still don't entirely understand what a pager does.
It just flashes a number and tells you to call that number.
And you go to a payphone and you call that person.
Yeah, then you have to find a phone to call that number.
So weird.
But all it does is say, this person is trying to get a hold of you.
And they would put 911 in front of their number if it's like, you better call them now.
Ah.
There's also digital watches, which were really cool.
They're a pretty neat idea.
But as far as, I wasn't feeling nostalgia for the 80s watching this episode at all. It didn't even really, I knew it was set in the 80s, 87. That was the year your mom and I got married.
Oh. When's your anniversary?
January 17th, 2 years before you were born.
You don't got that information ready to go?
No, I don't.
So rude.
I know it was... Actually, now that he says it, I remember it was in January. But I was wondering like how close it was to... Because it was November 7th, I think.
You want to know if you're illegitimate. Is that what you said?
No.
Hang on, I'm doing some math.
2 years plus.
I was just wondering how close it was to the actual, like... Because
The
there's a
date
wedding.
in this.
Yeah, there's a wedding in this. So... But no, it's like... It was in November, I'm pretty sure.
This is the first time I've realized that Rose is older than me.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Well, that makes sense, because, like, how old is Rose this season?
19.
19.
Because that is a thing that keeps being brought up about how she's 19 and the doctor is, you know...
Too old for her.
Too old for her. It's even said in this episode. Her dad says it. Okay, so this is just a random thing that I just thought of. The doctor takes his jacket off at one point, and he just looks like a dude.
He stops looking
like the doctor, and he just starts looking like a dude. When he's just going around in that green sweater, it feels very bizarre to me.
I will say, it's not a bad look.
No.
But he just stops looking like the doctor.
One thing that's interesting, too, when the doctor takes that jacket off, it's like when the 12th Doctor drives a car, and you're like, this isn't right. It's the same sort of thing where it's like, no, the doctor wears a coat and never drives a car.
Unless you're 3.
Unless you're 3. But then you have to drive a special car. You just can't drive a regular car.
Right.
The 11th Doctor one time drove a fire truck, and that's on brand.
Yeah.
Motorcycles are okay.
The Doctor can only drive a vehicle that, like, a small child has a plastic version of.
Yes.
Actually, the first time the first Doctor was in a vehicle, I was like, this is weird. Because they never went back to modern day at any point. Because the thing was broken, and if they got back to present day, they would just leave.
They didn't want to be there.
So I don't think the Doctor actually ever got into a vehicle until, like, I want to say the War Machines, which is when it was Ben and Polly. So it just felt weird, just the Doctor being in the presence of a vehicle.
The idea of the Doctor taking an Uber is very strange.
Well, yeah, because like he says in this episode, he doesn't live like that.
He doesn't. You're right. He literally says he does not take taxis in this episode.
That is true. That is a thing.
That was such a good scene.
That's such a good scene.
I love that scene.
Can we talk for a second about Paul Cornell?
Sure.
Paul Cornell, the writer of this episode. Do people know who Paul Cornell is?
No.
I'm vaguely aware of him. I know he wrote novels during the wilderness years.
He wrote novels for the Virgin New Adventures series, the novels that sort of continued Doctor Who after the cancellation in 89, they were like as official a continuation as you could get. A lot of writers who were writing for the Seventh Doctor era at the time moved on and wrote for some novels. The weird thing about the novels, especially in relation to this season, is that the novels are this one space where there's continuity between classic Doctor Who writers and new Doctor Who writers, because both of them were writing like Virgin New Adventure novels. Like Ben Aronovich, who wrote Remembrance of the Daleks, wrote novels, and Russell T Davies wrote a novel. Of all the writers who wrote novels for that line, Paul Cornell was the most famous, at least partially because of the one novel that he wrote that will eventually get adapted a couple seasons from now, Human Nature, which he originally wrote about the Seventh Doctor, but he will then later adapt for the 10th Doctor. And this is a completely new story. This is not based on a novel, but very much feels like it has the hallmarks of Paul Cornell. Like, it feels similar to Human Nature, even if you just watch those two episodes in relation to each other. I think they have similar thematic concerns, similar ideas about the Doctor, and similar ideas about humanity in a way that I really appreciate. And I do think that, like, he is one of the greatest Doctor Who writers, even though, like, again, he only wrote, like, 2 episodes or stories for the television series. But he's a very important, there's, like, a reason that he's here. Everyone who writes for this season, the first season, wrote for the Virgin New Adventures, except for Robert Shearman, who wrote Dalek, who wrote Big Finish Audio. So, like, pretty much everyone there was, like, involved in, like, Wilderness Years stuff in a way. So in a weird way, this is like simultaneously a victory lap for the Wilderness Years writers and kind of like a coalescing of everything that they did.
I need to read that stuff.
Some Wilderness Years stuff?
Yeah, I will one day. So you're talking about humanity. Is that, you talk specifically that scene with the Doctor and the bride and groom-to-be?
Exactly. I love where, yeah, he talks about, like, Midnight Street Corner, how he never had a life like that. And again, like, which goes on to, like, Human Nature, which asks the question, well, what if the Doctor did have a life like that? And the way that, like, the kind of narrative conceit is, again, subordinated under the emotional character arc that they're doing. I've also seen people talk about the way that, like, he kind of is riffing on Neil Gaiman a little bit. I was realizing how much the 9th Doctor is kind of just Sandman.
Yeah.
Down to having the jacket.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very Sandman look. The only difference between Sandman and the 9th Doctor is the hair.
That's true.
I kind of forgot I was participating. I've just been enthralled with Christine's talking there.
I now want to see Christopher Eccleston play Sandman.
I'd be into it. I have mixed feelings about the guy who plays Sandman in the TV show.
I do too. He won't close his mouth. That's my big beef with that guy. He's always doing this.
You gotta explain it.
He's making an O with his mouth.
But it's different than that, because it's also a little pouty.
It's a little pouty. And to be fair, Dream as a character is a little pouty.
Yeah.
For sure.
Stucking out a little.
I actually think that, like, I prefer the television Sandman when he smiles. He has a good smile. And he feels a little more genuine when he smiles. Like, sometimes when he's being more pouty, it feels more put on.
Hey, Dream, you should smile more.
I want to bring something up about the episode, but I kind of like the way this is going.
Just talking about Sandman?
Yeah. Not that I don't like Doctor Who, but I'd like to revisit the redemption thing. Not only for her father, but think about the dude that hit him.
Oh, yeah.
That's true, yeah.
At the beginning of the episode, he hits him and takes off. That's a, bad move. He knows he hits him and just leaves. When he hits him the next time, he stays. He accepts responsibility, though technically it's not even his fault anymore because this time he ran out in front of him deliberately, But in a way, it's his redemption story too that he stayed.
Is that why he stayed though? Because like it's not really his fault anymore. It's like, oh, it's not my fault now. Now I can.
Because it's not his fault anymore. He won't get in trouble.
I kind of wonder that.
Do you think that guy was stuck in that loop and aware of it?
Oh my god! Like it wasn't just the car that was looping. Like he was inside of it, experiencing.
I don't think so because he did this the same way every time.
Oh yeah, but I think he knew. He had to know. God, imagine the hell that he was stuck in.
Is Ned Ryerson.
That's never crossed my mind, and now I'm horrified.
Again, this is Paul Cornell. Again, this is the guy who would later be like, and then the doctor trapped this girl in a mirror forever. Absolutely, I think that guy is conscious every single time.
So if he hadn't just died, would he be looping for eternity?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
Well, I mean, eventually I think that the time dragons would have eaten him.
Okay.
The time dragons got rid of everything, pretty much. Was eating up all of everything. Do you think these time dragons are related to the dragon from Sliders?
God, I hope not.
I will say, I don't think the CGI holds up.
It looks better than the dragon from Sliders.
I mean, everything does. But, like, I think they look fine when they're attacking and everything. It's when they're just kind of just flying and they just look so stiff.
Honestly, I think there's nothing about their design that... This is the first time that I've noticed the scythe appendages on them. But there's nothing about their design that's, like, truly very memorable.
No, it's not. I've always thought they're very generic looking in a way that I feel like a lot of CG monsters tend to trend as... It feels like the start of a trend in, like, CG monsters for, like, sacrificing a theoretical kind of biological realness for, like, cool design.
I will say the audio design is good.
Yeah.
It's literally terrifying, their screeching.
Like, first time that they, like, they're in the church, and they cut away from them, and you just hear the sound of them, I was like, oh, they're terrifying. But it was, like, just hearing them and not seeing them. So, yeah, kudos to the sound design.
Fun fact... That's my new catchphrase.
Yeah.
Fun fact, this episode was somewhat written to be cheaper to film. That's why it's mostly in one location, and it's more of an emotional story. And then they went way over budget on the CGI dragons.
I feel like you're constantly saying this.
Yeah, way over budget.
I just feel like the dragons look like cheap plastic toys that you would buy, somebody under 10.
They probably exist. There's probably a toy of it somewhere.
One of my favorite bits of lore in this episode is the way that they're safe in the church because the church is old. Like, that the older a building is, the longer it lasts, which is interesting. I think that it makes a really kind of intuitive sense.
It does. It also sounds, the way that he says it in the episode, it's one of those things where you have to go, all right, fine. Like, he just says something with, like, such authority where he's like, this building's old, so it's safe. And you're like, okay. But then you actually think about it for a while and you're like, if it's like a time thing, the thing that's been around the longest is going to be, like, it's more established time-wise. It's more of a constant.
Yeah, it's like one of the rare bits of, like, technobabble that makes more sense the more you think about it.
Yeah.
I actually think the Reapers do work better when you don't see them, especially in the playground scene.
Oh, yeah, that one, you're talking about that one shot where the kid's on the swing. And somebody's pushing him, and the camera follows him, and it comes back, and that person is gone.
Yeah.
That shot was rad as hell.
You said the kid on the swing, like we don't get a huge reveal that's baby Mickey!
You're right!
I completely forgot about that when we watched this episode. It's baby Mickey!
It's wild that, like, that eventually becomes, like, Stephen Moffat's move, and the first time it happens in, like, New Who, it's Paul Cornell.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, we see there's a young Rose. There's actually 3 Roses in this. There's baby Rose, there's child Rose that's being told the story of her dad by Jackie, and then there's grown-up Rose.
I don't know why. There's a lot of times sometimes that, like, Rose reacts to something in, like, a very intense way that to me is like, all right, calm down. I mean, it's fine. Her reaction to, like, seeing herself as a baby, I was like, no, that's fair. That would be so weird.
I love the baby in this, by the way. Every time it cuts to a reaction shot of the baby,
it thinks everyone else is dumb as fuck.
That baby is just skeptical of everything. I love it. Bad Wolf update.
There was a Bad Wolf in this
There is a
one?
Bad Wolf in the episode when we're going down. There's a sort of establishing shot of the city or whatever, and there's all those posters. There's like the fuck Thatcher posters basically. There's those smiley face posters that say like Energize on it or something. Mm-hmm. One of them has Bad Wolf written on it.
Oh.
So that's our Bad Wolf for this episode.
Is this meant to... what year is this meant to take place in?
87.
87. So this is 2 years before Jackie theoretically briefly meets the 7th Doctor.
Yeah, Dad, in the very last episode, of Classic Doctor Who, it is set in 89. This woman just shows up in the last scene and yells at the doctor about noise or something. I don't even remember. But she sounds just like Jackie. She looks a lot like Jackie. It's Jackie.
Much in the same way, like, the Doctor Who is rickrolling us, like, that is Jackie Tyler. Like, it makes so much more sense for it to be Jackie Tyler than for it not to be. I fully buy that, like, 2 years after this wedding, like, Jackie Tyler was there yelling either at the 7th Doctor or around the 7th Doctor.
It just makes sense.
She's real good in this episode, too. I want to talk about the dad some more, because I feel like, I don't know if we talked so much about his performance necessarily, because I thought he was really good. Apparently, it was originally going to be played by Simon Pegg.
Oh.
But then they moved him over to the editor.
That would have been bad.
I think it would have been too. Though Simon Pegg's great. He was great as the editor. But yeah, this guy was like really good. I really liked him.
Oh, yeah.
I think he does do a good job of being kind of an idiot, but also like
A lovable
idiot? Yeah. You like
a complicated person.
Yeah.
You like him as long as he's not, like, hurting the people that we already like.
And I don't think he ever intentionally hurts anyone. He only hurts people because he's just an idiot. Like, there's this talk of him cheating, but I don't think he actually cheated. I think he just legitimately got into a goofy situation.
Oh, I think he cheated.
You think he cheated?
I think he cheated.
He's pretty self-aware of what he did wrong.
I don't know the extent of the cheating.
You think he just got a finger in, or?
Whoa.
I fully believe that man, at least a couple of times, has, like, fooled around outside of the marriage.
I don't think so.
Why don't you think so?
I think he's just the kind of guy that always gets involved in situations that make him look bad.
No, he actually does some shady shit.
He meets Rose. He immediately is like, I gotta get to a wedding. My wife is there. He says that immediately. And that seems like something he wouldn't do if he...
Let's be fair. I don't expect him to be cheating on his wife on the way to a wedding. Like, that seems a little weird.
Yeah, but like, you could leave that option open with this hot blonde that just saved you.
We can't go there. There does not exist.
That is a very good scene. Just avoiding the incest right off the bat.
But that's what I was saying before when he was saying that's not me, when she's talking about how wonderful he was. He knew he was kind of despicable. He knew it. He just looks at, no, you're lying. That's not who I am. He's pretty aware of how funky he is. So your theory is moot.
I think what he is unreliable.
Yes. No, that is the thing. I think that, like, that is when he says that's not me, I feel like that is the thing that he is really talking about, is that he knows that he is fundamentally an unreliable person, whether it means being unreliable as a provider or unreliable as, like, a stable partner or a faithful partner or something like that, that he is just, like, fundamentally unable to make it work, unable to get, like, his shit together.
Yeah, and there are people like that. I had a friend that Joe knows. I'm not going to say the name, but he was just the nicest guy you could hang around. Dependable? No.
Didn't he wind up in a different state one time?
Yeah, he wound up he left a Christmas gathering and wound up in a different state and stayed there for years. But like I said, super nice guy, lovable, but just a carefree spirit. Not necessarily a bad person in general, just he was just not reliable.
I mean, I think he has severe undiagnosed, like, something.
Yeah.
He's easily distracted.
Let's say that about Rose's father then. He's just easily distracted.
Easily distracted.
Now I kind of feel bad for the guy.
You should. He dies, man.
There's another one. It's fine.
He comes back. It's fine.
A version of him comes back.
He doesn't come back.
If Simon Pegg had played that character, we would never have seen that character again.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah, that's the other reason why it's like Simon Pegg's wrong. I think, like, if Simon Pegg played the character, then he absolutely would be the character that I think Joe is describing, and the person who's always kind of, like, in the wrong situation. I mean, he would have been, like, his space character, or, like, you know, the character that Simon Pegg plays in most things. You know, the Shaun of the Dead character.
Interestingly...
Honestly, I think you might be wrong, but I think it's very cute that you're like, no!
I try to see the best in people. It's interesting, Simon Pegg's co-star in Spaced and Shaun of the Dead is in Human Nature.
Oh, yeah.
She's the woman he has a relationship with. Jessica Stevenson, I want to say.
It's Hines and Stevenson. I think Hines is her maiden name, and then she married and became Stevenson, or it could be the other way around.
I think it's the other way around.
Cool.
Yeah. She's great, though. I like her.
Oh, I love her.
There is something we haven't talked about.
Okay.
Which is that the scariest thing, I feel like,
oh, yeah,
that could possibly happen to the TARDIS happens to the TARDIS in this episode.
That it's just a police
That
box.
it's just a box. That's terrifying.
It was originally supposed to just completely fall apart, and they're like, that's too much money, and then...
This is worse.
I think so, too.
This is so much worse.
And Paul Cornell agrees. He's like, yeah, it's better that it's just a box.
And it's so easy, because then you could just use the prop.
You just...
Yeah.
There's something about it that's, like, deeply terrifying and wrong, but then when you think about it, you're like, that is just what it is like, though, isn't it? But that's why it's so wrong.
Because it's like, no, that's the actual prop. It's literally the magic of Doctor Who has been sucked away, and it's not bigger on the inside. It's not, like, the thing. It's literally just the prop.
And then the Doctor takes his jacket off, and then he's just a guy.
Just a guy.
He's just a guy with a box, literally, with a glowing key that becomes just a key.
Yeah.
These Reapers are literally sucking away Doctor Who.
They're sucking away the lore and the mythology and leaving behind the cold reality.
Yeah, that's something we didn't talk about either. The Reapers just straight up eat the Doctor. The Doctor just disappears towards the end of this.
I mean, he dies.
Yeah, he dies.
He's gone.
He
does not solve any problems because he's dead.
There was a potential that they wouldn't be able to film Christopher Eccleston very much because there was like something going on with his dad, and also like it was towards like a filming break, so they had it possible that he would be
just dead for a while.
Yeah, for longer.
I can't even imagine. Like if they just like killed the Doctor and then went for like 3 more episodes, and you were just like,
no, not for 3 more episodes. Just killed him earlier in the episode.
Earlier in the episode.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying like they would kill him and just go on and then do like a Dr. Light episode, and everyone watching would be like, "Is he coming back? Is this the show now?"
They wrote a version of this episode where he dies earlier in the episode.
Okay.
And then they wrote another version where the Dragon Reaper poops Tennant out.
Yeah, that's why we never see the Reapers again, because the Reapers, like, are anti-Doctor Who.
There was an early draft where she doesn't save her dad. She goes back and saves herself. Or her dad died saving her from getting hit by a car. And then they go back and Rose saves herself. And then time gets all wibbly wobbly. And then they go into a diner. And then that's like, time's going weird. And that's when like people from the past start showing up and stuff. That was the original, very first original draft.
I mean, that makes the phone call thing make more sense.
Right. I've always thought that was a weird thing in it. It feels not, like, in keeping with what's going on the rest of the time. That makes so much more sense.
Time is getting funky other than just the phone call, too, because there's the rap song that plays on the radio that hasn't been released yet.
Oh, that's right.
So there's a thing from the past and there's a thing from the future.
It sounds like the original, like, idea for it was much closer to the Wedding of River song.
Yeah. I think RTD was like, no, let's pull it back. We want this to be smaller and more emotional. And I think he was right.
That was the right call, yeah.
You know the story about RTD writing a 7th Doctor script?
We talked about it in the last episode, yeah. That was what became The Long Game. He wrote The Long Game for the 7th Doctor and submitted it, and Andrew Cartmel was like, you should write a script about a man and his mortgage. Something more your speed. A man and his dog, a man and his mortgage.
Devastating thing to say to a person.
Yeah. And honestly, he might have been right. The Long Game was bad.
But, like, it's interesting how that really does kind of become a cornerstone of, like, Russell T Davies, like, as a writer and what he does with Doctor Who. It's like, yes.
Incorporating more, like, soap opera elements sort of thing.
Yeah, just kind of more weird kitchen sink drama elements. And, like, kind of weird, like, domestic realism and stuff.
It's the first time it's really felt domestic. There's definitely been soap opera-y stuff before, but not done well.
No.
5th Doctor, cough, cough.
We haven't talked about Jackie, really. I mean, we've talked about things about Jackie, but we haven't really talked about Jackie in this episode.
She's wearing a wig.
She's wearing a wig. It's great. It's so much. I'm a forever 100% committed Jackie Tyler stan.
This is correct.
I adore Jackie Tyler. Jackie Tyler did nothing wrong.
We met her once. She's very nice.
She is.
I bet. No, she's so good. And, like, she's so good in this episode. I love Jackie Tyler. I've often said, like, the difference between, like, the Ninth Doctor and the 10th Doctor is, like, really evident in the way that, like, the both of them interact with Jackie Tyler, where 9 is more visibly kind of annoyed by Jackie, but also kind of treats her more like an adult, whereas, like, 10 is, like, more dismissive of Jackie and way more likely to make jokes at her expense.
Though the Doctor does get in some good Jackie roasting in this one, where he just, well, not roasting, but he just, like, very deliberately tells her to do the thing, and then she's like, yes, sir. He's like, I should have done that ages ago.
But it's also, it's like, you really feel the sense that, like, it's because, like, I have a relationship with this person. In a weird sort of way, Jackie Tyler is his mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Jackie Tyler is kind of an in-law that he is forced to deal with. And so they have this sort of strained relationship that's built on, like, a mutual love and respect of this other third person that they both care about. But, like, they kind of have a tense relationship. And it feels much more natural with the Ninth Doctor. And again, it feels part of that sort of kitchen sink realism of it's like, you're not going to get along with her family. Which, of course, Christopher Eccleston's really good at. Like, I do think, like, we lose the sort of, like, realism of this first season in the Tennant seasons, where they go for this much bigger, still soap opera, but, like, less, like, domestic. You know, it's much broader in the 10th Doctor years. But it's very, like, very domestic, very kind of grounded here. And that's very much down to just the things that Christopher Eccleston is good at.
Yeah, or it could be budget.
Also budget.
They want to keep it closer in, not a lot of weird things.
And then they keep messing that up. Expensive Dragons, which is my favorite Imagine Dragons cover band.
Yeah.
So, Dad, we've asked you, because you're an expert on Reapers, about the Reapers. We've asked you about the 80s, because you're from the 80s. So, you're also a dad. How do you feel about this episode as a dad?
I hope I did a much better job. Of course, I never sacrificed my life for you, but I would have.
You have died. You have died and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I straight up killed you in the Projectionist Project.
Oh, yeah.
I killed one of your characters, and then Death went and reaped his soul. So you reaped your own soul.
It was a self-reaping.
Yeah, self-reaping.
And then I wrote a script later that revealed those two characters were the same character.
Which was still a lot easier than putting my underwear on a big screen at a movie theater.
I love you, Dad. Yeah, okay, so should I talk to Dad about this?
Yeah.
So, there's a trope, I guess, that I enjoy, or that gets me emotionally choked up. Anytime there's dad stuff, I don't understand why. Like, someone trying to impress their dad or get the attention of their dad, but their dad's like a dick. I'm like really into that for some reason. I don't know. Like like Gene Hackman's character in Quick and the Dead, when he just like refuses to acknowledge that Leonardo DiCaprio might even possibly be his son, that like emotionally tears me up. And anytime there's like something like that about like someone worrying about disappointing their dad or whatever, I just get really involved in it. And I don't know why, because I don't have like daddy issues. I think you're cool. And you've always been very cool and supportive. And like, yeah, you wore your underwear in a video I made, and then it was on a big screen at a film festival.
Maybe it's empathy. Maybe that you didn't have to deal with that growing up, and you see somebody who did, and you're like wishing that their father was better.
Yeah,
I think it's like the worst thing that you could imagine, because it's so outside of your experience that you're like, whoa.
It would be the most destabilizing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The way I treated you growing up, though, is just because, heck, being your father was the funnest thing I've ever done. I mean, we got to play around shooting videos and doing even stuff like this. It's just awesome, all the stuff you do.
Thank you.
I want to cry.
Christine's weeping.
I'm getting choked up because this is my trope.
Yeah, and you've got the coolest friends.
I do. And like most of them are on this podcast. I don't know what I was going to say. Dad stuff.
How do you feel about mom stuff, Joe?
You know, mom stuff too. I feel like it's not as prevalent, and usually when it's a mom thing, it's usually like a mom and the daughter, not usually a mom and a son.
That's true.
Though there is a mom and a son thing in The Lion King 2 that really gets me. The Andy Dick character? Yeah. When Andy Dick plays a hyena, and he's constantly trying to like, get the respect and love of his mother, who is, like, one of Scar's old flames or whatever, and she's, like, she pays more attention to the other... No, it's not. He's not a hyena. I'm sorry. He's a lion.
It's a lion. Get your Lion King lore right.
I know. I can't believe I fucked up Lion King lore.
Damn.
Kovu, right? He's Kovu's brother.
Yeah.
And, like, she's, like, super into, like, Kovu because he's, like,
Is
Kovu.
it or was it the hyenas?
No, it was a lion.
Okay.
And he's just constantly trying to get her attention and her love. And then there's, like, a bit where he does a big thing and he gets crushed under, like, a landslide and rocks are crushing him. And, like, in his dying breath, he's, like, trying to get his mother's approval.
And she does not
care.
Give a shit, and he just dies.
Breaks my heart.
Real Faramir behavior.
I was going to say it's rare that Andy Dick made me cry, but...
That is true. Some of the things that, like, he was a part of make me cry.
That's fair.
I will say, as someone who has worked in pet care for many years, both as, like, in, like, boarding and in veterinary stuff, met so many pets named Kovu. Kovu is an increasingly common pet name. Cats, dogs, whatever. A lot of Kovus. And I think every single person who names their pet Kovu thinks they're the only one. Everyone's like, this is an obscure reference to The Lion King 2. No, most people don't know about The Lion King 2. This is my pet Kovu. And it's like, yeah, we've got 5 of those.
The Lion King 2 is the only good straight-to-video Disney sequel. The only good one.
You want to talk about things that, like, push your emotional buttons? The Lion King 2 is one of mine.
It's a very good movie.
It's the song where they all fucking kick him out.
Yeah.
And then just sing a goddamn song about how much he sucks.
Was it, like, Dishonor, Disgrace?
Yeah.
It's a good movie. And everybody wanted to fuck Kovu.
Yeah, that's a thing I've heard about other people.
Oh, yeah. Kovu was a sexual awakening for a lot of young people. Not me, but other people.
And he's voiced by that guy you really like. There's like James Marsters, Jason Marsden, and James Marsden, and I can't...
Yeah, he's one of them.
He's one of those 3. He's the one that's not Spike or Cyclops. He's the one that was Max in a Goofy movie. I think that's I want to say that's Jason Marsden. This has gotten wildly off topic.
Yeah, I'm sitting here wondering about that, but didn't want to interrupt. It's good entertainment.
I think we should take an ad break. What do you think? Is there anything else we need to discuss about this episode before we take an ad break?
Yeah, one last thing about your mother. Let's let people know she's camera shy.
Oh, yeah. She's still around and still cool.
Yeah. She was hanging out behind the scenes. She did not like being in front of the camera.
She still was in videos I made, but less so than you. She was mostly characters who didn't talk. Yeah. But yeah, let's take an ad break and then we'll be back for final thoughts.
Did you know that Apple has a credit card?
People keep asking, are we back? Yeah, I guess we're back. Back to talk about cigars, movies, TV shows, and any other nerdy topics here on the Cigar Nerds Podcast. Check us out on cigarnerdpodcast.com and esonetwork.com. And we have a YouTube channel at Cigar Nerd Podcast, where we do cigar reviews, live versions of the show, and any other dumb thing we think to record.
And we're back. Tony.
Welcome back.
Hi, thanks.
You were gone and now you're back. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Do you know what time it is?
I do.
What time is it?
It's time for final thoughts.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm tired today.
You didn't even do your bit.
You kind of feel incomplete now, don't you?
A little bit.
That like a bit was supposed to happen and it didn't, and now you feel like you missed a step walking down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Thank you. All right, it is time for final thoughts. Final thoughts. My final thoughts are that I really liked this episode. I liked it the first time we watched it. It was, it's still not the one that sold me on the episode, sold me on the show, but it's one of the ones that I was like, oh, this is really good. But it still wasn't like a perfect blend of everything that I wanted, which is, again, the next two-parter, which I guess is what won the Hugo. The 3 that got nominated for your Hugo were the ones that I was like, oh, this is a good show.
So I guess the system is working.
Forget the Oscars. Let's just listen to the Hugos.
Can I talk a second about the short form Hugo category? Because I remember the other day I went on a deep dive on like short form Hugo, and I need to tell you about my favorite year of the short form Hugo visual awards, because it's really amazing. One of the things about the Hugos is that every year that Doctor Who has an episode on television, at least one of them will be nominated for a Hugo. That's just kind of how it works. But, like, what I really love and will think about for the rest of my life is in the early 2000s, like, I want to read to you the 2003 short form Hugo nominees and winner. And they are as follows. Things that were nominated in 2004. The 2004 short form nominees and winner. Things that were nominated. This is before Doctor Who. There is the Buffy the Vampire Slayer finale, 2 episodes of Firefly, including weirdly Heart of Gold, which is kind of, I think, the worst one. But okay. An episode of Smallville. And they all lost to Gollum's acceptance speech at the 2003 MTV Movie Awards. That won a Hugo.
What?
Okay.
I mean, it's great.
In case you want to, like, temper your feelings about Hugo award-winning episodes a bit.
Why are those in the same category?
Because they're not movies.
What was the other Firefly, by the way?
Yeah, it's The Message. Oh, I know why. It's because they're all ones that were, like, premiered on DVD or whatever. It was from the year where they put it out on DVD, so there were ones that didn't air.
What was the Smallville episode?
Oh, it was called Rosita, apparently. I know nothing about it.
There was a bad episode of Firefly?
It's not one of the better ones. That was the whorehouse episode and the episode with the dead guy.
Yeah, neither of those episodes are my favorite episodes of Firefly. Not even close.
It's no Our Mrs. Reynolds or Janestown.
No.
There were just some episodes that were more spectacular and great than others, but I don't think there were any bad ones.
I think the first one of the Reavers kind of me. But
Anyway.
All right, I gotta get us back on track.
Okay, so yeah, my final thoughts. Yeah, when I watched this originally, I was like, this is when I was really starting to get into it, and I was like, okay, this isn't just goofy.
Farting aliens?
Yes, not just farting aliens. And though, as I said in the last episode, farting aliens, not the worst episode this season.
Oh, no, not at all.
But I like how low-key it is. And we're talking about like how it's the 80s, but it's not really super in-your-face 80s, and I think that's actually good. It's not distracting. It's not like...
Well, it's also more of it's not the idea that we have of the 80s, which is very stylized, sort of. It's just the actual 80s.
They actually brought in photos of themselves, like a lot of the cast and stuff, brought in photos from the 80s so that they do the makeup and everything to look the same.
One of the things about this episode is also just the 80s were much more in living memory for more people. Like nowadays, like the 80s, like again, I spent most of the 80s with shit in my pants.
Your parents should have changed your diaper
Yeah,
more often.
what's going on there?
I was hiding it. They didn't need to know. It was much more relevant in people's minds, the actual 80s, because it was all fresher back then. Whereas, like, nowadays, it's been, like, much longer since the 80s. So, like, the 80s feels even more of an abstraction than it did at the time.
Yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. This is the first episode of Doctor Who that's made me cry. It made me cry then. It made me cry now, because, hey, daddy stuff. I think it's very well acted. I really like the dad in this a lot. I think he plays the role perfectly. I think everybody's on form in this episode. Because sometimes I feel like, I don't know if it's that Rose gets some weird dialogue that she has to deliver, but I feel like this is one of the first episodes where like Rose is just 100% good. Because sometimes she says things like, how can I die? I'm supposed to be in the future. And you're like, that's not how time travel works. But yeah, I really like this episode. I remember when we watched it originally, you were not as keen on it. And then we watched it and I was like, why weren't you keen on this? It was good. And then you said your whole thing about Reapers, but you can save that for your final thoughts. But yeah, I think this is a great episode. Even if you take it on its own without like continuity things, you're good. I think even if you do take it in with continuity things, who cares?
Truly, they do enough hand waving.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is that breaks continuity a little bit is also it's in a Moffat episode, and I don't care because it's emotionally fantastic. Because I do think, like, generally in Doctor Who, if someone touches themselves, it does cause a problem. Like it did with the Brig in Classic Who and stuff like that. And then it happens in a Christmas episode that I don't care because it's fantastic. Anyway, that's beside the point. That's not about Father's Day. So yeah, I say watch this one. It's good.
So yeah, I have to say, I didn't, like, upon first viewing, this wasn't one of my favorites. I had issues with it And then upon second viewing, I was like, all of those issues are dumb. And I was wrong.
This is your second episode in a row where you've changed your opinion on the thing.
Well, and that kind of affects it too, right? Because I, had all these feelings about, Adam, and, Adam screwed up and then gets kicked out of the TARDIS, and then Rose screws up in a way that's, much worse. And it's fine. And I remember, the first time watching it being very annoyed because it's oh, well, it's just because, she's cute. Which is there a little bit, but, there's a lot more going on. So yeah, I think being hung up on the Reapers is it's just paying attention to the wrong parts of the story. Even the story isn't that interested in them. It's much more interested in telling this story about this very the story about a daughter and her dad and the way people are complicated and disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
And also the reasoning between their two different mistakes between Rose and Adam is the motivation is Adam's is much more selfish, and Rose is selfish, but it's also, I don't know, more empathetic.
It's not kind of capitalistic. It's not about personal gain. It's about trying to heal an emotional wound.
Yeah. When we were watching this, I was I'm gonna have to get on the podcast and be I had a bunch of bad opinions. And I'm glad I rewatched it because I really enjoy this episode.
Oh, I love this one. I would say, with the exception of the next story, this is my favorite episode of the season. I really like everything that it's doing. I really like the focus that it has on story and character. I like the almost fableness of it. The way, there's an almost fairy tale quality to it in that it's feels like you have to fix the thing that you messed up, and it's not that the story has a moral, it's just the story is about very human desires and very human mistakes. And I really enjoy that, and I like the way that it tells a story about these very human desires and mistakes and foibles in this very kind of apocalyptic way. It's almost a Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode, in that way, in a way that I very much enjoy. But yeah, I adore this one. It's great.
And last but not least, the titular father.
It was interesting to watch this. I haven't watched this episode in quite a few years, so I'm getting to watch it as a standalone because I'm not watching them in order. But yeah, I think that, once again, the redemption. But overall, there are a lot of parents out there, a lot of fathers who aren't the greatest fathers in the world. But the underlying effect of the love they have for their child, there's a lot of people who don't go to the ball games and don't do things with their kids, but would lay down their life for them. So it just shows, even though she was a baby, he loved her with all his heart, and without hesitation went out there and did what he needed to do. So that's what I pick up from it.
So do we need to kill Dad? What's
Like I said, if it meant saving you guys, I'd go out and run in front of a car. But let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Have you been hit by a car in a video I've made? I know I have.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one of the better effects you've ever done.
I thought that was me who got hit by the car.
No, go away, devil man. Go away.
Oh, yeah. You got hit in one, and I got hit in the remake.
Yeah.
Don't get hit by a car. That'd be bad. Don't do it. All right, so before we go, is there anything we need to plug? Christine, anything you want to plug?
I mean, like I said, I have that, those web series, Read Road Trippy. I forgot to mention, did for a long time a podcast with my friend Bree about Burn Notice for some reason.
And we did a podcast about your podcast.
If you listen to Christine's podcast about Burn Notice and then listen to its companion podcast.
It was a very strange thing that all of us did. I feel like we were perhaps under the influence of a gas leak or something.
That sounds right.
But if you do like hearing me talk about television, that's a good place to go do it.
You also did Brains.
Oh, yeah, we also did Brains. I'm in Brains a little bit and stuff. That's another web series. It's about zombies and apocalypse and dating. It's fun. Go watch it. Brains web series.
And what's your website? Yeah,
I was going to say, everything that I do, you can get to at thechrischerry.com, and links to everything.
And you've written 2 short films that I've filmed, The Joke and The Job Interview.
Both great.
I agree. Dad's in The Joke. he throws up. These are the things that make my dad do.
Over a toilet.
Over a toilet, and you almost say "fuck the goat," but you don't get to say it.
Yeah.
You start to. Dad, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I'm going to be in the current episode of the Watch-A-Thon of Rassilon. But seriously, though, all the people out there listening, you're all Doctor Who fans, which means you know other Doctor Who fans. So spread the word, get some people to listen in. I'm just going to shamelessly plug my wonderful son and daughter-in-law. And Christine, too, my unofficial daughter.
Please don't talk about plugging your son.
But that's his kind of humor. Nothing other than that to announce. Maybe soon I'll get a certain webcomic going. Maybe by the time that you get around to Tenet and I come back, because I'm coming back for Tenet. So, yeah, but that's it.
I will plug for Dad. On mintypineapple.com/store, there are some comics that Dad drew that you should check out because they're good. There's Tugboats Are Cool, there's Time, and there's Tales from the Kitchen. Oh, there's Get Tough, too.
Yeah, Get Tough, yeah.
That one's kind of older, and I did some weird coloring stuff in that.
And it's a little low res because it's the only version we had left.
But definitely check out Tugboats Are Cool, because I think that one's my favorite out of them. It's very goofy, silly, and fun, and Dad drew it really well. Knocked it out of the park. I love it. I think it looks great. I really specifically like the shot where the guy's crying, talking about the chips he likes. And also just go to mintypineapple.com in general and see Dad in his underwear. That one's the Social Network parody. Place for Friends. Tony, you got...
No, but if you want to keep up with me, you can follow me on all of the things at Forward Power.
FWD PWR.
FWD PWR. I don't really update any of them except for Instagram, really.
I've been doing Blue Sky a little bit. I have a Blue Sky finally.
You like Blue Sky?
It's fine.
Does anyone care? That's a genuine question. Not just about Blue Sky. Is Blue Sky in any way legit of all the,
I don't know. Neil Gaiman's on it.
Neil Gaiman's on Tumblr. That doesn't mean anything.
That's true.
He doesn't have standards. He's on Tumblr.
I don't know. Brian Lynch followed me on Blue Sky.
I have a Blue Sky account, but I created it, and then that's it.
I've been trying to post something every day.
I
didn't post anything today.
I created it and closed it and never thought about it again. Same with my threads. Yeah. Here's the thing with threads. I was like, I actually don't have to care about every single social media site that comes out and get on it. Good. And that's great. And then that same day, I was in a meeting at work, and my boss was like, so, has anybody looked at threads and, seen what that's about? And then I was like, oh, that's right. I work in marketing and social media. I do have to care about every social media site that comes out.
I'm just waiting to see if there's a winner.
It's whichever one porn chooses.
Yeah. So Tumblr's going to make a comeback.
Yeah! Bring back Tumblr. It's the only social media website I actively enjoy.
That's because they can't sell it. They can't monetize it, which means it's just a website.
There's now a weird clown you can't get rid of from One Piece.
I think the clown's gone.
The clown's gone?
The clown's gone. We gotta wrap this up. Okay, we're spiraling.
Yeah, we're spiraling. Okay, so if you like this episode of the podcast, check out more on WatchYourRassilon.com. You can also find our podcast, our Patreon, and more at Linktree/Watch-A-Thon. That's linktr.ee/Watch-A-Thon. I also want to say we are only $11 away on our Patreon from doing a guaranteed monthly bonus episode.
Wow.
And
you could be the person who pushes us over.
We're only $36 away, I think, if I'm mathing correctly, from doing Walk With Me as a monthly podcast. So, and that would be public. So, become a patron.
Become a patron and give that gift to everyone else. When the first Walk With Me comes out, you can be like, I did this.
And yeah, like Dad said, tell other people about us. Also, I want to give a special shout out to Vincent E.L. for providing us with our amazing theme song.
Thank you, Vince.
Check out more of their music at vincentel.bandcamp.com. And tune in next time when we talk about The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances with whoever shows up. That's a free-for-all episode.
Ooh, I like those.
And also, that is the two-parter that sold me on the show. So you gotta come back and see if it still sells me on the show. Maybe my opinion will change on
Maybe
it.
you're like, actually, this is garbage.
This is bad. This is terrible. What the hell? I do remember there's one thing that I thought was really stupid in it, but we'll see if I still think it's stupid.
All right.
But until next time, keep calm and Rassilon.
Goodbye, and I love you in a platonic, parasocial way.
Joe, I relate to you because I also like daddy stuff, but it's a different kind of daddy stuff.
Bye, everybody.
You were there for us all the time. Someone I could really rely on.
That's not me.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.